From WBBZ-TV Sports, it's time to beat the champ. Now, here are your hosts, Paul Peck and Sue Novoitsky.
Well, hi, everybody, and welcome to Beat the Champ. It is week 2 here on Grand Island. You know, there may be an amusement park just down the road, but I don't know that they ever have any wild rides like we had last week here on Beat the Champ. A couple of incredible matches that ended with Jeremy Zimmerman's wild victory over Andy Regg. So we get Jeremy back to start things off here today.
That's right. This is going to be another interesting week. We've got kind of new faces, or maybe not as familiar to the Beat the Champ viewers. But I think that Jeremy proved that, you know, it doesn't have to be the same old for it to be super exciting.
No, and what we know about Jeremy Zimmerman, because we've seen him on the show enough, is that he is one of the most entertaining bowlers. He wears it on his sleeve and on his socks and on his shoes and everything else.
Yep, that's exactly the truth. He lives every single shot that we said that, and these guys have their jobs cut out with them today, taking him on. Joe
Montante Jr., Josh Shoemaker, Rob Gatas are the challengers for this week against Jeremy Zimmerman. You are going to have to be on your toes as always.
Always, especially with a competitor like Jeremy Zimmerman. We really don't know what we're going to get and the adjustments that'll be made to come out on top.
Well, with all of that said, let's get rolling.
I'm here on Beat the Champ with Jeremy Zimmerman, our defending champion, in quite extraordinary fashion. What a finish you had that last match. All I can say is you expect a lot of yourself. I see the expectation. I mean, you want every shot to be perfect. And, you know, how do you think you fared last match?
Well, other than, as you guys can see, the open, I thought I threw it really good. And the 10th frame was a lot of fun. I thought I threw pretty much all 3 really good for once. After the trip 4, we'll just say.
You know, I noticed from watching you bowl a lot that ball that you throw, is that one of your favorite balls? Because I see that making the telecast quite a bit.
It's actually a new one. It's one Mike just drilled for me about a month ago, and I actually shot 300 with it to get into the show. And I have the other one, but I just don't use it as much anymore. But I like how the bowling ball has multicolors.
Right. Oh, so it's the multicolor you look for, huh?
I don't like basic one-color balls.
All right, so going into this match today, coming in as a champion, I know you. It's just more of the same, right?
We're going to try. Hopefully we can keep it going and beat my own record. That's what I told Mason before I left. I'm going to try and win. And I got a win finally, so now we just want to keep going.
All right, well, that's you got big shoes to fill, and they're your own, so good luck to you.
Thank you.
Right. I'm here at Beat the Champ with Joe Montante. Seems like a flashback. Seems like I just saw you here, and great bowling to get back here again at Island Lanes from being on the show at Classic. Did you enjoy that experience?
Oh, absolutely, I did. I'm actually just glad to be back at a bowling alley that's not Classic.
All right, you want to make a point that that's not the only place you bowl, right? Because you come here and you were very successful. And what was bowling here like? I mean, what was the difference between what you normally see when you're over there?
The insides actually held a little bit better here. If you actually missed in, it actually held. Over a Classic, if you missed in, there was no hold at all. It was actually a lot easier to probably carry around here, but you got to hit the pocket right to carry.
All right. Well, that's going to give us something to watch for while you're bowling and a little bit more to talk about, and I wish you luck today.
Thank you.
And here we go, match number 1, Jeremy Zimmerman against Joe Montante Jr. To get things started here at Island Lanes, this is the 4th appearance on Beat the Champ from Joe. 1 win and 2 losses. We saw him last month. He bowled at Classic Lanes, where he wound up winning over Chuck Jagosinski and then losing when Brandon Stewart threw the 300 game against him.
I will say it's been nice for Beat the Champ. We've been getting some new faces on, so definite interest. People showing up. I always like to say, you're bowling well in your league. It's October. You're feeling good about your bowling. Get out here and give it a shot. I mean, it goes to show you that not only are they making the show where they come from and where they're comfortable, now Joe's making the show at the next place.
Absolutely, and that's great. I mean, that's what's fun about this show is that the opportunities are always there for anybody and everybody to make the show, but but it's not always the same people
Right.
every week. And honestly, if it was, it would get a little boring.
Right.
So it's good to see new faces and new stories and new names, and that's how a guy like Jeremy Zimmerman sort of emerged to the star that he is now, was because he kind of came out of nowhere a little bit.
And a lot of people, and I mean, we're here on Grand Island, which is a little bit of a trip for people, but so far there's been more people on this show that are not regular league bowlers here than are. And so come out and try it, even if it's not in the Housey Bowl weekend,
Right.
because we're seeing
At
a lot
least you
of
don't have to
success.
slow down anymore when you're coming out to Grand Island. All right, good 2-pin pickup on the first frame for Jeremy Zimmerman. You can just keep cruising at 65 miles an hour right here through the no toll tolls.
Don't forget to pay your
Well, I was gonna say,
bill when it
yes, if
comes
you don't
in.
have the Easy Pass, make sure you pay by mail. There, we don't want we don't want to have anybody blaming Beat the Champ for ringing up any fines. So we do not have any influence with the Department of Motor Vehicles, just so you know.
So I found out from Jeremy in talking to him that this is a new bowling ball that Mike just rolled up for him. And I'm like, that looks like your old bowling ball.
It does,
It looks
doesn't it?
exactly like the one I've always seen him make the show with. And it's not. It's a brand new one, and it's rolling very well for him.
Joe Montante Jr. is, as we mentioned, 2 weeks in a row, 2 months in a row that we've seen him. We saw him at Classic, where he works. That is his full-time occupation, is working the front desk at Classic Lane. So it was no surprise that he made the show at Classic, but it tells you that he is a good bowler beyond just the place he hangs out with in order to qualify here at Island. And a little shake of the head there from Joe. Can't quite figure out how that one happened.
We've seen that same leave out of Jeremy. There's a high flush leave that you leave that it seems the way the ball deflects off the pins that just misses that 8-pin, and it's still just such a great shot.
You got to look at Janelle Saban on the Castellone Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram scoreboard with the early numbers from this one. Let's see if Joe can grab that 8-pin. He does. So it's strike spare in the first 2 frames for both guys right now. Joe has a 224 average, bowls regularly at Classic Lanes, as you might expect, and also bowls in a league at Kenmore Lanes during the week as well, too.
That's good. He gets out of his comfort zone and does a league somewhere else. That's always good to see, because you definitely see different things when you go to different houses. They all have their little characteristics.
And I think the competitor in every one of these guys is, okay, I'm good here, but I want to see how I match up against other people at another place. If
Great
he keeps
shot.
bowling like that, he won't have any problem no matter where he goes in Western New York. Good
funny.
start for Joe Montante Jr.
I asked Joe what he saw different this month versus last month, changing houses, and he did notice that there's a lot more hole in the middle of the lane, so it kind of affects where your eyes are. But interesting to know that these guys are definitely picking up on the differences.
Frame 3 for Jeremy Zimmerman. And there's another strike, 2 in a row. This is the 13th appearance on the show for Jeremy Zimmerman.
This feels like a good time to take a short break. We'll be right back with more action on Beat the Champ. Welcome back to Beat the Champ. Let's get back to the action here on WBBZ-TV.
6th frame for Joe. Well, he's got a nice, pure shot, doesn't he? It goes right down the same spot on the lane every time.
Not to put you on the spot, but if you're watching these two bowl, who are generally playing the same part of the lane, what do you think the difference is, and why Joe's not going higher? Does anything stand out to you as far as the difference between the two of them?
Well, I'm gonna guess that it's just a little bit more of the way Joe sets up.
I think what he does is he creates that awesome ball speed. They're playing the same part of the lane, but
the higher ball speed is going to allow less holding up of the ball.
Right, and because Jeremy's starting to see a little chink in the armor there as far as he went a little high, and I think that Joe overwhelms that with his ball speed and his loft. So next time he comes up, let's look at his loft and how much over the front of the lane he gets that ball over.
Right.
And because again, they're playing a very similar part of the lane, and they do, you know, they're both able to play in there. And so far, that's what's standing out to me with Joe is the ball speed and the loft.
And don't forget, I mentioned Billy Lanes in Bradford, PA is our next stop. Top qualifier down there is in the round of 24 is going to win a television valued at $500 from Dirt Cheap TV. I don't think Jeremy, as good a bowler as Jeremy is, his ball speed is not necessarily something that jumps out at you. So to your point, I think you've nailed it. The ball speed from Joe is a bigger advantage right now.
Oh,
and
Jeremy.
There's a miss of the single pin spare opportunity in the 7th frame for Jeremy for the 2nd match in a row now. He has opened with a single pin spare.
And I say that his concentration is so good, and there's the only thing that could make you miss that pin right there was a lack of concentration.
Well, and he'll be the first to admit he tends to linger on a bad shot or a bad break. But if you can come right back and recover, that's how you need to do it. And we certainly saw that in the dramatic victory over Andy Reddick last week, that a 9th frame open didn't prevent him from winning the match.
Right.
So there's your updated Castellone Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram scoreboard. Mike Zarcone won the television here. We talk about the top qualifier from Dirt Cheap TV. I think Mike Zarcone's got more TVs in his house than most sports bars in Western New York.
I think the last time we said that, we were corrected and said he had only won it once. We'll find out later.
This is his 3rd time now. He's won TVs 3 times now. One more TV win and you're going to get a circular in your Sunday paper from Zarcone. Well, meanwhile, as we're chatting about our buddy Mike Zarcone, Joe Montante is up to 6 consecutive strikes. That's why you have to pay attention to the Castellone Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram scoreboard. You have to not listen to us making fun of Mike Zarcone and pay attention to the match.
So since this match is getting very dominated by Joe, just wanted to take a look at that loft right there. Now that ball he got in a little bit and he knew it, but because of that loft that holds off.
So for comparison purposes, let's watch Jeremy and you'll see that his ball does not go nearly as far down the lane.
Jeremy sets it shorter. You'll watch when he lays it down, and he lays it down pretty close to the foul line.
Is there an advantage or a disadvantage to any of that, or is it just an individual style?
It's an individual style, but I would say you have to factor that into your ball choices, and you have to factor that into your adjustments, because when you set the ball short, the ball's going to start rolling sooner. And in a wood house like this, where the heads actually, it matters, and because it'll pick up sooner, those are 2 double whammies. So it picks up sooner, you lay it down sooner. So you have to compensate for that.
And more prone to getting affected by the oil as well, too.
Where Joe is eliminating that entirely by just lofting the ball right over that front part of the lane. And so he's negating whatever can happen right there.
Well, Jeremy comes back with a 10th frame strike here, but it's an uphill climb for him at the waist on the way Joe is bowling. And right around the top of the 10 pin, and that sort of sums up this match for Jeremy. Did not get the Zimmerman luck that we are used to seeing. It just didn't happen for him, and you know, I think when it doesn't happen for him is when he gets a little overly emotional, and that sometimes affects his bowling. So
and his opponent is looking at shooting 280. That's a big number.
Yeah, so it's a 206 on the board for Jeremy Zimmerman. It's going to be a victory here for Joe Montante, but we're going to stick around and see if he can't keep this streak going, as he is already working 7 in a row on the strike front. Make it 8 in a row. Boy, Joe is going to put himself up one heck of a score and one heck of a match in this one. So Joe Montante Jr. with an outstanding performance to come up with the win over Jeremy Zimmerman. We'll talk to Jeremy, get you ready for match number 2. When Sue and I return, it's Beat the Champ on Grand Island here at Mallwitz's Island Lanes. Well, Jeremy, I think you summed it up perfectly when you just said that was fun for you.
That was absolutely fun. Even though I won one and then I got smoked, it was still fun. It's good to be back in the winner's circle.
You know, we've seen this sort of mystical approach that you have to this game where you always seem to get some lucky breaks along the line, but you can't count on that, and you didn't necessarily get them in this match. Does that get frustrating when sometimes the things that usually happen don't happen?
To a point. I mean, when you throw it good and it doesn't happen, then it is what it is, but I don't know if I'll ever have luck like I did on that streak, so we'll just keep trying.
All right, well, and that's the only way you can go about it, right, Mike, is keep trying.
Absolutely, keep trying every month. And I mean, welcome back to the show. It's good to see you on the show again, and we'll see you Friday night during league, right?
Oh, yeah, my birthday. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, what? Your birthday?
My
What?
birthday's Friday.
All right, well, there you go. Well, happy early birthday to you, Jeremy, and we know we love when we have Jeremy on the show.
Don't forget the cash.
Don't forget the cash, absolutely. But we know Joe Montante is going to stick around on the show, and he's bowling great right now. Match number 2 from Grand Island is coming up next.
I'm here to Beat the Champ with a new face to beat the champ, Josh Shoemaker. You are going to school here at Buff State, and you're from Rochester, but I see you drill your own bowling balls. So tell us about your experience with bowling.
Well, I started a little bit later than most people did. I was about 13 years old when I started, but I really just fell in love with the sport and got into a shop up in Rochester, Bowler's World up there with Ray DeSanto. And he helped me out a lot with stuff, so I started drilling some of my own stuff. So I'm working out of the shop there part-time, basically.
Does drilling your own equipment put more pressure to figure it out or less pressure? Do you think it's rather than asking someone else to figure it out for you, or do you find it more difficult to have that responsibility?
I really enjoy it because I guess if I struggle, it's really basically all on myself. And then I just enjoy figuring it out as well. So that's nice. It doesn't put any more pressure on myself, I don't feel like. All
right. Well, that's a great talent to have, and I know how difficult it is that's very physics oriented. So congratulations on that, and I hope to see you do very well today.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
It's Josh versus Joe, and we are ready to go with match number 2 here at Island Lanes. Josh Shoemaker will take on Joe Montante Jr. Joe coming off the impressive 279 performance in the win over Jeremy Zimmerman. Josh Shoemaker making his debut here on Beat the Champ. And he will give us our first two-handed bowler of the week, of the month in this case. We are off and rolling on match number 2, and the pins are going down thanks to Josh Shoemaker.
So we have Mike here who also drills bowling balls. So do you drill any balls for any two-handers up to this point?
I actually do not. I did once, but it's not like I do it on the regular basis.
I'm going to assume there's a different way of drilling for a two-hander?
Yes. Well, actually, since USBC just changed to the weight hole rule with the side weight and everything, that kind of opens things up for two-handers because you can have 3 ounces of finger, side, or thumb, or anything like that, where before you had to use a weight hole, and then they nixed weight holes for two-handers, so it's very complicated, but it's kind of wide open now with the new USBC rule.
Gotta keep on your toes here for the ball drilling now, right?
Wow.
That's keeping you, testing you.
Wow, that's interesting. But was it changed because of the two-handed bowlers? Don't want to say?
Maybe.
I think Mike's face told you your answer before he even said it. Of course, that is Mike Mallwitz. He is the proprietor here at Mallwitz's Island Lanes, and we're watching Joe Montante continue to keep those pins falling. That's 2 strikes in a row for Joe. And Josh Shoemaker is from Henrietta, New York, outside of Rochester, but he currently lives here in North Tonawanda as he attends school at Buffalo State College, where he's majoring in mechanical engineering, 21 years old, and cool story towards that whole getting the new guys on the show. And here's a new young guy who, even though he's not from here, has decided it's time for me to get on this TV show.
Yeah, well, in talking to him, I found out that he drills his own bowling balls, and so it's part of, it made me start to think about whether he had to learn a whole new process. He's obviously 21 years old, so he's grown up with this two-handed game and chose to be a part of it. So how he learned to drill bowling balls to favor that was just sort of crossed my mind as how did that happen?
Right.
Mike, not a surprise that that there would start to be some parameters that are laid out for equipment related to two-handers as that trend continues to grow and grow?
Well, yeah, clearly when Josh hits the pins, there's some power there. And that's sort of the advantage the two-handers have. They have speed and power that you just can't match, throwing it with a thumb. And interesting note, as we were talking about last week, that this house tends to favor the down and in straight bowlers. So it's not shocking that the only guy that hooks the lane is a two-hander.
So after the open in frame number 2 for Josh, he continues to sandwich that with strikes in 1 and 3 and get back on the routine now. And Joe Montante, with strikes in the first 2, heads towards frame number 3.
I think it's an interesting subject there with the two-handers, because now we're getting to be where it's been around long enough to kind of see how it's affected, bowling as a whole. And, it's been great for kids because it's given them a new interest in bowling and a different way to go about it. So I see that the younger generation has sort of taken a new interest in bowling because of it. But like you said, for putting your thumb in the ball, you cannot create that rev rate traditionally. So
Yeah,
I was waiting to see how rules were gonna be affected and stuff like that.
Right. It's definitely interesting. Even look at Walter Ray Williams Jr., one of the best bowlers of all time. Lately, in actual PBA tournaments, he's been switching to two hands when he thinks it's time. So, for one of the most deadly accurate best bowlers of all time,
that's incredible.
That is incredible.
To try two-handed in an actual tournament shows you something.
When
about.
does he do it? When does he use it? Have you noticed why he chooses to do it at certain times?
I think it's at a point in the tournament where he clearly sees that, hooking the lane is going to work. The two-handers light it up, and he says, if you can't beat them, you might as well join them.
That is such a physical challenge to a man of his age. My gosh.
Yeah, I don't know how he does it. He does it well.
Speaking of doing it well, there's another strike for Josh Shoemaker as he continues to try to match Joe Montante Jr., who has struck through the first 4.
Well, thank you for that little bit of information there, because I was not aware, and that is definitely interesting to think of that. Now, let me take it one step further. Can you switch to being a two-hander at any time during a match?
Yes, because technically you're throwing the ball with the same hand.
How that is not an advantage when you can't pick left-handed or right-handed. How that totally defies
logic.
Yes.
Yeah, I know.
Because if you can switch to a two-handed for more rev rate, why couldn't you switch to left-handed to shoot your temper? That is debatable right there.
Right?
This looks like a good time to take a break. We'll be back with more Beat the Champ right after this. Welcome back to Beat the Champ.
And he's getting close to having that thing pretty well perfected. Spare in the 7th for him. Don't forget, top qualifier in the round of 24, and we are in the midst of qualifying for next month's stop down in Bradford, Pennsylvania. They win a television valued at $500 from our friends at Dirt Cheap TV.
Speaking of Dirt Cheap TV, I'm still watching my television that I got from a couple years ago when I was high qualifier, so I'd like to thank Dirt Cheap TV myself.
And if you want to watch 3 things at once, then you just have to go over to Mike Zarcone's house.
I think him and Chuck Jagodzinski were talking to each other after qualifying, who's got more TVs.
I think that between the two of them, they may have more TVs than you do here in Island Lanes.
I think they might. They have more TVs than Best Buy.
8th frame for Joe. Boy, everything just went right around and by the 8-pin.
That's his second one now, just like that.
Yeah, the other one was on lane 8 last match.
Right, it was.
And there's nothing you can do about a smash 8 or a walk through 9, It's a bad break, you suck it up and you make the spare and go on to the next shot.
You're exactly right.
There's the Castellone Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram scoreboard. Thanks to Janelle Sabin keeping us up to date on what's still a pretty good tight match here. Even though Joe has put up a lot of strikes, Josh has kind of matched him.
There is such a thing as a weak 8-pin, and you know, where the ball just hits flat, and you can leave an 8-pin or an 8-10.
Right.
But what Joe is doing is definitely not a weak 8-pin. Those are.
No, the ball's just going straight back and missing it.
Yep.
So now to the 8th frame for Josh.
We're looking at a 21 pin lead here for Joe. So Josh is gonna have to start striking. Yeah.
Trying to make his Beat the Champ debut a successful one, and that certainly will help. 6 career 300 games for Josh and a couple of 800 series for him. Bowls in Travel League here around Western New York with a 226 average in that Travel League. That's outstanding. And then he'll sub in here in Buffalo and Rochester, as we mentioned, from Henrietta, but lives here now in Buffalo as he attends school at Buff State.
I asked Josh about whether there was a bowling team at Buff State these days, and there is not.
There's not?
No,
Wow.
he said there isn't.
That saddens you, doesn't it?
It does, because that's where I bowled and had a great experience.
That one got a little too far left, and you can see the results.
Yeah, he cut that one short. Not quite sure how that works when you're cut it short. I mean, but
Is it almost too far to the right on the approach because then a hook back goes too far to the left?
because I don't throw it two-handed, I really don't know what the motion is. I mean, I saw him cut it short. I mean, that's what cutting it short is, but what they do different, I don't know.
Well, somebody get me a two-handed expert in here if you're going to sit in that chair. Come on now.
Let's get Walter Ray on the phone.
Get Walter Ray or Belmonte here. All right, so now a chance for Joe Montante to kind of put this one away here in frame number 9. He's got the lead, and he's bowling great, and he's knocking all the pins down, and that's what we look like we're headed towards, another victory here for Joe Montante Jr. Second month in a row that we've had Joe here on the show, and that goes towards the consistency and the level that he is bowling at right now.
Joe still needs a mark.
Joe needs a mark. Thank you for saying that. I'm like double checking my math. He does need a mark.
10th frame for Joe. Uh-oh.
Wow.
Uh-oh.
And I was just saying that Joe needs a mark. Well, that makes things interesting.
Wow.
Now,
another interesting match at Island Lane.
Yeah. Here's the deal. Getting one pin here is huge because that would force Josh to strike out only for a tie. So one pin, actually, no, I'm wrong on that. Correct myself. It would still force Josh to strike out to win by a pin.
So Joe is just going to go for the one pin.
And he got one.
Okay, so he's going to post up a 226. And we're in that situation again where
that we saw last week.
That we saw last week with Jeremy. He needs all three to win.
Three strikes.
3 strikes to win. 2 strikes and a 9 will be a tie.
So it's 3 strikes and you're in this case for Josh Shoemaker.
But we'll start with the first one. He has to have this one.
So once again, right down to the final rolls.
Wow.
Not going to happen.
Wow.
So the loft outdid the two-hander in this one.
In this instance,
In this instance.
So Joe Montante had to sweat that one out just a little bit, but he comes up with a victory, 2 in a row, that will give him a chance to go for the weekly sweep in our 3rd match of the day. We'll check in with Josh on his debut and get you ready for that match between Gattis and Montante when we all return to Mallwitz's Island Lanes on Grand Island. You're watching Beat the Champ. Well, Josh, as well as Joe had been bowling, you still come up to that 10th frame with a chance to win. What's going through your mind?
I just knew I needed to get it to the right spot down lane. I had a good look on that lane. I don't think I missed the rest of the match there, but just couldn't come through, and I needed it.
Right. Well, debut on the show, first chance to get out here. How do you think it went overall?
Oh, it was fun. I liked it. I came out Sunday, bowled one qualifier, and then got lucky enough to make it onto the show after the top 24. So I'll be back. It was fun.
Well, that's good. And now Mike's going to make you feel even a little better.
Yeah, Josh, I watched you bowl all week. We've never met before. I've never seen you, and that was solid bowling Sunday. It was really great. So I'm sure we'll see you again, 100% guaranteed. And here's a little bit of cash in your pocket.
Thank you very much.
All right, good debut here for Josh Shoemaker. We got one more match to go. It's going to be Montante Jr. versus Gattis. Stick around. That is coming up next on Beat the Champ.
I'm here on Beat the Champ with Rob Gatas, who we've seen before, and to me you're an anomaly because you do not bowl leagues. So how do you stay sharp?
Just practicing every once in a while, but like I said before on the past shows, it just kind of comes all natural to me.
And you fill in now and then, but consistently do not take part in league, right?
No, I do tournaments whenever I can, but leagues not really.
Okay, so tournaments, on the other hand, gives you a different mentality when you're bowling because it's more competitive as opposed to leagues. So maybe that is an advantage to you. How do you think that plays in when it comes to something like this?
That's a big reason why I'm not big on leagues is because I'm so competitive. I like to do the tournaments. It's kind of more what I like.
Okay, well, it's working for you, and you're in a tournament, and I wish you well today.
Thank you.
So Joe Montante will try to keep his winning streak alive with the challenger ready to put an end to that is this gentleman, Rob Gatas, making his third appearance here on Beat the Champ, has yet to get his first win on the show. So that's the goal here for Rob Gatas, to try to knock off Joe Montante, who's bowled 279, 226 already in the first two matches. So Rob's gonna have his work cut out for him.
It's about negotiating the dry versus the oil.
So we'll see how our two guys, Joe and Rob, handle that. And it's a good start. It's a good start for Rob, at least.
All right, so we're going to go back to the scoring factor here, and the fact that the down and in has better carry, and that negotiating the front of the lane is part of the magic of figuring out this house. And I think that's how we talk about Rob going to tournaments, and that's what he will learn going from tournament to tournament is, the nuances of wood, synthetic, old synthetic, besides where the pattern is.
Right.
But the secret to this house is definitely negotiating the front of the lane, as in most wood houses. And that's where Joe's where he's shining.
Right. Because of the wear and tear on that part of the lanes from the constant usage. So striking the first frame for Joe, and he'll attempt to grab the spare here, the 4-pin spare in the second frame. Joe's thrown a lot of strikes through those first two matches, and he'll just have to kind of find himself back into that groove.
It's funny.
Hook to the left and a spare for Joe Montante.
As someone who's bowled with Liz Johnson for a lot of years, if you watch Liz bowl on TV, you think she never moves. Liz kind of looks like she's always playing the same part of the lane no matter what's happening. And it's because she compensates with equipment and with stuff she does with her hand. And it's be curious to see, as the lanes still have to break down, whether Joe can throw the ball harder and loft it a little bit more, or whether he's going to have to move into that oil.
Let's see what Rob can do. Rob is 26 years old, from the town of Tonawanda, assistant manager at Gash's Market. Strikes in the first two for Rob, and as Sue pointed out, he does not bowl in a league, one of the rare bowlers that we get on the show that doesn't have an average per se and doesn't bowl regularly 3, 4, 5, 6 nights a week on some occasions. But that has not prevented Rob from being on this show pretty regularly. We mentioned his third appearance. Last time we saw him was at the Rapids Bowling Center back in August, where he lost to Mike Zarcone. And he would love to be able to have another shot at Zarcone. That would mean he would have won 3 in a row.
Exactly.
Zarcone is slated to be on next week's show.
Well, I made a remark when about the league versus the tournament, that league maybe sharpens your spare skills, but if you never leave one, I guess it doesn't matter.
That's true. Good point. There's Janelle Saban on the Castellone Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram scoreboard, getting you up to date on the early scores in this match between Montante Jr. and Gattis. Yeah, I feel like Joe's lost a little bit of the rhythm that we saw in the first two matches.
Well, the lanes are definitely going to change a little bit, and like you said, how is he going to adjust to that? Is he going to throw it harder? And now he sees his ball check up a little bit. He'll have to make that decision.
As we mentioned, Joe had the unfortunate circumstance of being the victim of a 300 game last month at Classic Lanes, as Brandon Stewart was able to throw that 300 game against Joe Montante. And just in case you're wondering, the trivia answers to the question of who have been the 4 victims of our 300 games here on the show. Tyler Molina, Steve Dorbiala, Pat Brick, and Joe Montante.
Really?
Pretty good. I'd take that team, wouldn't you?
Right. You think about the person who shot the 300. You don't think about the poor person that was the victim.
That's right. Mike D'Amico, Paul Geiger, Jason Siliberto, and Brandon Stewart have been the 4 guys who have rolled the 300 games.
Ball change.
Yeah,
Very
good decision,
nice.
as it's a 4th frame strike for Joe Montante.
Well, I guess that answers
What do you
my
think that was all about?
Because that ball was checking up for him, and he's got 2 choices. He has to throw it harder, get it up and out more on the lane, or change balls. And he stayed in the same spot and just got a ball that will go a little bit longer down the lane.
Is there, in your history, if you've got to make a choice between those 2 moves, what generally tends to work better?
Well, it depends. It depends who you are. Now, in his case, he's been bowling a lot of games. I think throwing it harder is more challenging because you're tired, the day's been going on. The chances of you just having to throw it harder and harder and harder doesn't really make a whole lot of sense because you're getting tireder and tireder and tireder. So you definitely, if you're
not going to throw it harder, it's going to start to lighten up a little bit.
So instead of having that speed factor be negotiable, just take a ball that's going to compensate for that and go a little bit longer down the lane.
Gattis need to pick up the spare here, and he misses it. 4th frame open for Rob Gatas, only one of the 2 pins that he needed.
The action will continue on Beat the Champ in just a minute. Welcome back to Beat the Champ.
So let's see, maybe Joe has figured it out here. By the way, this is the 110th competition show of Beat the Champ since we started nearly 3 full years ago. And if you throw in our exhibition shows, we're well over 100 and almost 140 shows. And that's not a moment that Joe's going to want to put on his best of Beat the Champ reel.
No.
And the look on his face tells you all you need to know about an incredibly difficult 4, 6, 7, 10.
Yep, he wanted to do anything but that. I mean, the way he's chosen to, try to stuff it into the pocket is by playing it more in the oil. In this case, he overpulled it, went high.
So he'll take the 2, which means it's an open in the 8th for Joe Montante Jr. And now, even though he's had 2 opens, the opportunity is there for Rob Gatas.
Absolutely.
He's had an 826 in his career, and he's had 4 different 300 games.
He can take a big lead here with a strike. It's a big shot for him. Perfect.
How about that for responding to the moment? Rob Gatas with a 2nd consecutive strike, but even bigger than that, coming up after Joe leaves the very difficult situation for himself. And you can see the Castellone scoreboard will reflect some pivotal moments going on right now. Rob Gatas still looking for his first victory here on the show in his third appearance. Well, that one just kind of died right at the end, and he needed a little more pin contact, and that's why he's got that 6-pin still sitting up there.
Yeah, that checked up on him, so that we've talked about that lane hooking a little bit more all day, and I think that still stands to be true, which kind of explains Joe splitting on that lane as well.
You talk about maybe the most critical role in the match based on how Rob has struggled with the spares. This is a big one here in the 9th frame. And he missed it again. Third time in the match that Joe has left an open after missing the spare opportunity. So just when Joe was ready to bury his head after an 8-pin open, all of a sudden he's got another chance again.
Just keeping it close. Still anybody's match.
Question is, does anybody want to win this match? Well, somebody's going to win it and advance on the next show, and that's a good strike from Joe in the 9th frame.
Okay, so going into the 10th, he actually needs 2 strikes and 9.
And that will give him the victory?
And that will give him the victory.
All right, well, there you go. You can do that math on your own thanks to the Castellone Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram scoreboard. 3 left for Joe, 2 strikes and a 9, gets him the win, and doesn't even give Rob the chance. And now the chance remains for Rob. And Joe is looking to the sky.
That lane has become a challenge.
Oh, yeah, it sure has. So, and I don't even think Joe knows how to react to what's happened to him in the last couple of frames.
Well.
So, what do we got here, a 210?
A 210, it's a makeable spare,
Is it?
and he needs to make it.
You got to hit the 2 on the outside and fly it over?
Mm-hmm.
Boy, he got the pin movement he wanted, but it didn't connect.
It was close.
So, and Joe can't understand how that happened either, so it's going to be an open in the 10th for Joe, and it puts the 171 on the board, and that means Rob Gatas is going to get his first Beat the Champ victory. As he rolls to the 10th frame here, let's see how he does, but have we ever had a winning match with 3 open frames? I'm going to guess no. Well, we have now. We have now, and that's certainly an unusual occurrence at any level of bowling to have 3 opens and win. But once again, that's what's great about this sport. That's what's great about this show. We always promise you might see something you've never seen before, and we deliver, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
So I'm sure Rob will roll his eyes a little bit and shake his head and thank his lucky stars for getting this one.
It was
not easy.
Feast or famine, all strikes or that was it. No spares.
You're right, and that is absolutely correct. As you beat me to the punch by looking at the scorecard, it's been all strikes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, with a chance to make it 9, and 3 open frames. How about that for a scorecard? Let's see if Rob can finish off the symmetry. He does. 9 strikes and 3 opens, and it gets him a 201, and it gets him a win. Can't wait to talk to both guys about that match. We will do it when we return to Grand Island right after this. Well, the score says 201 to 171, but there is so much more to this match beyond the score. And unfortunately, Joe, you were muttering to yourself a little bit there because things just kind of did not go well for you. What happened?
No, I had to change balls in the middle of that game. I knew it was going to happen eventually with all the transition because of what I was throwing. First ball I was throwing was just rolling out on me, had nothing in the back end, so I went to something that would, and if I had the right ball in my hands, I probably could have threw something else that I had. I should have just moved in instead of trying to stay on top of what I did.
Right. Well, it was a good performance. You put up a couple of nice wins on this week, and we're getting used to seeing you on a weekly basis, so hopefully that happens again for you next week.
Yeah, hopefully I'll be back out to try again for sure.
Well, that's good to hear. Mike?
Well, you reminded me why you used to beat my butt and travel all the time. So you definitely had a good performance, and, great job, and we'll see you soon. There's a little consolation prize.
Thank you. Thanks for
All right, Sue, you got to ask Rob if he's ever bowled a match like that before.
Doing things the unconventional way, all strikes, no spares. But I'm sure that's not how you want to do it next week.
No, not at all. I don't miss spares, so that makes me pretty mad.
Yeah, well, luckily your strike percentage was pretty good.
Yeah, that saved me, but it's not really how I wanted to win, but it's a win, I guess.
A win's a win.
Yeah.
All right, so Rob is going to come back for you next week after the pretty amazing 9-strike, 3-open victorious match for Rob Gatas. Sue and I will wrap up another fun week here in Grand Island when we return on Beat the Champ. Well, the only other time you'll see a match with all strikes and no spares would be a 300 game, but that wasn't exactly what happened in that match.
You're exactly right about that. No, he does not want that to be his legacy, and we'll see a different guy next week when he comes back. He'll make his spares.
Yeah, as he said, he's good at making his spares. Just didn't happen in that much. Some good challengers coming up for Rob next month, including Tom Kress, Mike Zarcone, and Gary Kenyon.
Oh yeah, there's some real experience coming up for him next week. So. Got to get that spare game going.
Yeah, well, make sure you join us. That's going to be a lot of fun. You just got to write a lot of X's and a lot of not many hashes in that last match, did you?
Yeah, but it all came down to making those adjustments and doing what you needed to do to win, and that's what Rob did.
There you go. Couldn't have said it any better. Janelle knows her stuff. We all know that. Hopefully you enjoyed a rather interesting week here in Grand Island. Going to be even better next week. Make sure you join us. We'll see you then. Beat the Champ from Grand Island back next week. Thanks for watching, everybody.